Hello and welcome to my first Tarot Tutorial Tuesday video. Today I'll be talking about two card combinations in the major arcana of the tarot deck, the Tower card and the World card. Before I begin talking about the cards, I wanted to first talk a little bit about the astrology behind the tarot card selection here. I chose these cards specifically to talk about today because I was inspired to do so based upon the Mars-Saturn Conjunction happening tomorrow. It will occur at 4:27 a.m. Pacific Standard Time on Wednesday, August 24th, 2016. If you're into Western tropical astrology, this conjunction is happening at 9 degrees Sagittarius. If you're into Western sidereal or Vedic astrology, this conjunction is happening at 15 degrees Scorpio. The two popular systems are used roughly 24 degrees apart from one another. Going into detail about that is a whole separate topic from what I will be talking about here today. So quickly, I wanted to cover what is a conjunction and why is it important. Basically, a conjunction is when two planets are joined together in the same part of the sky, and their energies are either complementary to one another or they clash with one another. When Mars and Saturn are together, this can be a difficult alignment. Mars is known as the action planet who wants to go and move forward at any cost without necessarily planning or thinking ahead prior to taking action. And Saturn is known as the planet of gradual movement, step-by-step planning, and it's very thorough in its approach. Saturn has been given the name Father Time. With the fast-moving energy of Mars and the slow-moving energy of Saturn, we desire to take action, but often we feel like we aren't making any progress. Mars has a lot of force and power behind its movement, but Saturn trumps this with the reality of running into a brick wall, so to speak. I have often heard astrologers refer to a Mars-Saturn conjunction as an analogy of driving a car with one foot on the gas and one foot on the brake. In our personal lives, when we are living under a sky like this, the fast and slow energies can be a bit frustrating. We desire to take action, but we find there are blocks and limitations, therefore causing some frustration. Once Mars crosses over Saturn in a couple days, things will begin to pick up where there was once a delay. So the Tower card and the World card are representations of Mars and Saturn in the tarot deck. Before I begin, I wanted to make a disclaimer that I'm only sharing the symbology of these cards and how they relate to the planets. I'm in no way predicting events in this particular video. It is not intended to relate to predictive card reading on a personal level. I was inspired to talk about these cards because of the current Mars and Saturn conjunction that occurs annually. I'm only sharing information of the symbols in the cards that may or may not be energetically applied to you personally. So, with that said, let's begin. I think I'd like to start with the World card. It is the last numbered card of the major arcana. It's number 21. As you can see up here, it's labeled at the top of the card. The World card is a finishing card. What does that mean? Well, in Saturn, in classical astrology and Vedic astrology, do not recognize the outer planets of Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto as modern Western tropical astrology does today. So Saturn is traditionally a finishing planet. It represents endings, completions, and sometimes death. Likewise, this is a finishing card, which is why it is associated with Saturn. There are 21 cards in the major arcana tarot deck. This is the last one. So Saturn represents this card represents the things that Saturn stands for: hard work, dedication, achieving your goals, completion, getting things done, triumph in all undertaking, success and being successful. So since it's the last card in the major arcana, the figure here in the center of the circle has passed through all of the trials and ups and downs of life that has reached through the 20th card, and now we've gotten to the 21st card. So she's grown along the way from all of these experiences, and she's in the center of the card here, and she's got these batons in her hands, which she's sort of twirling. This is about talent and experience and being in control and being able to multitask and just really being accomplished and skilled at what she does. And I do think that this sort of cloth that she has wrapped around her, it's a purple cloth, which symbolizes royalty and experience, and it's just a card of completion and victory. It's just kind of has a symbol of showing that in the card here. There's also a wreath, which has to do with victory. This is seen in some of the other cards as well. Wreaths stand for victory and success and completion. She's in the center of the world, and we have the four corners of the world around her, which represent these, also represent the fixed signs. So we have Leo, Taurus, Aquarius, and Scorpio, the symbolisms for these fixed astrology signs. So let's see what else I wanted to talk about. This card really represents universal truth, circles and cycles, as we can see with the circle around her. It's one of the soul group cards. There are several groups around her, several different people, and it's about completions. And Saturn is also about karma. So if you have incomplete karma, the World card, or the world brings completion of it. Challenging aspects of this card would be, for example, if you were shuffling your cards and pulled this card out upside down in a reversed position, that would indicate fear of change, loss of vision, going in circles, stagnation, inertia, and fear of success, fear that may be holding you back in being successful or completing a project. It also represents that it may not be a good time to travel anywhere, since this card does indicate travel. And if it came up right, however, it can indicate travel and or a change of residence, especially if it's paired with the Knight of Wands. So this is a really good card that represents long distance. Since it's the world, it's areas on opposite side of the world, and it just represents these universal sort of things, and it's an ending, it's a finishing card. So I wanted to talk a little bit about Mars being associated with the Tower card then, since we have this conjunction with Mars and Saturn together. Mars is associated with the Tower card, and also Saturn is a co-ruler of this card as well. This can be seen with the symbolism of the card and the illustrations in the card itself, and also with the numerology. So before we had the numerology of 21 here, and in this card we have the number 16 that's labeled at the top of the card. So in numerology, 16 is 1 plus 6 being 7. So this card is associated with number 7. Saturn is the 7th planet in astrology. We have the Sun, Moon, Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter, and then Saturn. So we can also see both Mars and Saturn as a symbolism of the card. The lightning bolt here that's crashing down at the top of the tower is a symbol of Saturn, or symbol of Mars, excuse me. So Mars, the glyph, is generally represented as a circle with an arrow on it, and we see the arrow coming down here and just sort of attacking this top of the structure. So it causes some disruption. Saturn is the structure here, or the tower itself. So we see Saturn being this sort of hard structure. As I mentioned earlier, the Mars-Saturn conjunction was like running into a brick wall, so to speak. That's depicted here with the walls of this built structure. Also, Mars is fire, and we see some fire occurring here at the top of the tower. So we see a lot of Mars symbolism, we see a lot of Saturn symbolism here too. It's a sort of a secondary association with this card. So some of the esoteric meanings of this card are that life actually forces us to look at what or when we ignored the warning signs we were being given by bringing some uncomfortable change. It demands attention and respect. It brings separation and liberation. Sometimes it's a good tower, but most of the times it's not. It is the end, generally. So as we can see here, the blue man here is the king. And he has 10 yods above him here. And he is being thrown out of his tower and his castle here. He has a crown on his head, which represents the kingly leadership here that he's attached to. So this is about attachments, and he is unwilling to let go and therefore falling backwards. And the red man here is actually separated from the crown, and he is actually has 12 yods. And one beneath or between his hands, which represents the magician, meaning that all things are possible. So he is actually let go of the crown here, and he is accepting of the situation and falling forward. So he can see where he's going, whereas the blue man can't. So the crown is falling from the top. There is a separation because the tower didn't have a solid foundation with the crags here underneath. It can seem like this card comes out of the blue with circumstances. It really appears that way, but honestly there were many events, reasons, and circumstances to justify this separation that could have been ignored. It can also be a card of accidents, natural disasters, especially paired with the Seven of Pentacles, which can depict a pile of rubble. So some challenging aspects of this card would be, for example, if you were shuffling the cards and pulled this card upside down, reversed position, it would indicate something that is going to happen or has happened but isn't directly linked to us. For example, another person's tragedy. So how do we become the Tower? Being mindful of our thoughts, being positive, remaining positive to transcend all fears and negative attitudes, and just knowing and remembering that there is always something to be grateful for, even when life brings unexpected change. Okay, so how do we become the world? We take responsibility for our actions, and we are disciplined, and we do things on a regular basis. We are consistent, and we remain focused and don't let things on the external wheel here deter us. So this is the way that we can sort of become these energies and work with them with this conjunction. And that's basically what I wanted to share with the basic meanings of the Tower and the World cards and how they relate to the energy of the planets of Mars and Saturn that we're currently under. So I hope you enjoyed this video and found the information useful and entertaining. Thank you.